Okay. So having watched many, like I started my professional career in the late 80s. And so I've been at this a while. And the having watched a number of different cycles occur over the last 35 years, is that they are cycles, and they all have highs, and then they have releases. I won't call them crashes because not all of them crashed, but definitely releases from the hype. We are definitely in an AI hype cycle right now, and that's great, right? And like a lot of the preceding cycles, it starts with a few enterprises, companies, adopters. For us now, it's the LLM model producers and the hardware providers. Usually, in every other cycle, it matures past those at some point to being systems and application layer development, right, where it can actually be deployed. I think my own observation is LLMs are not a lasting differentiated characteristic. I think the cost and value of those will go effectively to zero over time. I think the enterprises that are starting to understand how to use the transformer model and ultimately what comes after that will, on captive data sets or whatever powers their business, to create specific application layer outcomes for their business. I think those are the ones that are going to really leap forward or be the next driver. And then, as this hardware, as NVIDIA's and OpenAI start to become a little less exciting, you're going to start to see application layer companies, because that's been true in every other preceding cycle that's gone before this one. I don't know why this one would be any different.
Yeah. Do you think like Cursor an example of the application layer, or I'm curious like how you would?
Yeah, I mean, because that is applied to coding, right? I mean, so we're talking about something where you can take the concept of a transformer idea and apply it to coding. Yeah. Yes, I think that's the beginning of that sort of thing, where you start to see well-honed applications of this base technology. Likewise, you've heard all this talk about blockchain for all these years, and then the coin cycle, which only recently is sort of hit a fervor, but I'm still unconvinced that there's any value in the coins. Right? Blockchain as a technology is very interesting and has very broad and potentially interesting use cases. The idea of creating a currency using that is an interesting one, and it's certainly creating some paper wealth for some people, but I don't think it's sustainable. In other words, there's no underlying value creation in a coin. It just doesn't, until there's other things that happen around it. I would say I bet on things that are blockchain based, technically based on the blockchain, not necessarily bet on coins.
Gregory, I think we were talking about this. It's the fundamental value comes from transformation, right? Transforming some kind of raw resource into something usable.
Yes.
The token creates no value.
Right.
So you could use it as a store of value, but fundamentally it does not contribute to the economy at all.
We haven't talked much about crypto on our show, but I agree 100%. So I guess I would define landscape pretty simply in this way. Like, Bitcoin is open source. It has some value. Maybe it's digital gold, and I would define it differently than all the private tokens. I'm not like a huge believer in it, but I think that's what's emerged in the market, and I think it'll continue. Right. All the private tokens, I 100% like. They don't have the value that even Bitcoin has. Like, it's open source, and maybe everyone will adopt this as some kind of like store of value or something. But I did like that, like, because the way the tokens work, that people are now applying to what I think is the basic use case of like incentivizing computers to work collectively. And I'm seeing people like selling infra and stuff like that with some type of like crypto network, which I had a friend of mine who like started a company doing that. And I was like, well, awesome. Because like, that's the only use case I actually see for like a private token is like, you can just incentivize different machines to work together. So I think there's some core fundamentals to it, but like pushing the value of a coin up as some kind of scheme, I'm just not.
Yeah, that is, there have been, I can't see that is sustainable value creation.
I agree 100%.
Do you have any predictions where in the next 3 or 5 years?
Okay, so it depends on the time horizon, and I think we all have our own opinions on predictions. I think that the more powerful AI gets, the more two things are likely to happen. Jobs will get displaced or repurposed, and education, as we currently understand it, related to the creation of jobs, will also have to fundamentally change.
Right.
Underneath all that, I think I don't see any future that does not at some level include universal basic income provisioning in society, because I think there's going to be enough job destruction over time that we're going to need to have something to fill the gap, because there'll be a lot of people out of work and nobody earning money, and then that'll crater every economy everywhere if that doesn't get addressed quickly. And if you run the camera forward a fair ways, if we have machines, and I won't call them AIs, I'll just call them machines that are very highly specialized, not only producing thought processes like they're doing now with the current transform models, but physical product, okay? We will have a society where everything can be produced at its lowest possible price or cost, okay, by machine. So rather than right now, we have market inefficiencies that will create over time create market efficiencies, which again means fewer jobs, So we have to rethink how humans play in that world, which then ties back to education.